What's going on, everybody? Kalipis Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G and going over whether or not it's a good phone to buy in 2022. Now, even today, around a year after the phone was released, this is a really popular phone. I mean, it's probably one of the most, if not the most popular phone on my channel right now. So in this video, we're going to be taking a closer look at this phone and its features and going over exactly what kind of value it provides. Now, before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. And if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out my other videos about it as well. But with that being said, let's get started. So the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G has a 6.5-inch TFT display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 270, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 81.6%. We got a water drop notch up here for the front-facing camera, and this camera is 13 megapixels. So overall, this display definitely looks good for what it is. I mean, it's only 720p, so you can only expect so much, but at the same time, the image still does look decently sharp, so it's definitely not bad. And despite being a TFT display, and not something like a Super AMOLED or something like that, it is pretty bright, and it has some decent viewing angles. Now, this phone does have 128 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion, but keep in mind there are other variants of this phone out there that have only 64, so definitely before you buy it, be sure you know which variant you're getting. Now, with this phone specifically, 128 gigabytes is definitely a good amount. Even if you're not a power user, even if you don't think you're going to need all that storage, in this day and age, with apps, the system, and data in general just getting larger and larger as time goes on, it's always good to have more storage than you think you need, because you really can't get too much. And of course, this phone also has microSD card expansion, so even if you get the lower variant that only has 64 gigabytes of internal storage, you can still offload stuff to a microSD card, so it's not too big a deal. Now, there's no wireless charging with this phone, but we are getting a fingerprint scanner right here on the power key. Definitely a nice spot for it, because you're probably going to be hitting this button to wake up the display anyway, so you might as well be able to unlock it at the same time. The Samsung Galaxy A32 5G also has face unlock, so it's nice to get multiple ways to get into the phone. But let's go ahead and give the fingerprint scanner a try and see how well it works. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, real fast and responsive, no issues here. Now, taking a look at the rear camera setup here, we got a quad camera with a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. So as you can see, even though this phone isn't exactly a very high-end phone, we're still getting pretty much all the features. So if you take a lot of photos, especially different types of photos, then this is going to be a really good thing. In addition to this, the quality is also really impressive, so no matter what you're taking photos for, this phone will definitely get the job done. Now for video, the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G can shoot in 4K in the rear camera and 1080p in the front. So that's another nice thing about this phone's camera setup in general. Not only can it take really good photos, but you can also shoot high quality 4K videos as well. So as far as the general camera setup and everything related to it goes, this phone for its price range is going to be one of the better options. Now internally with this phone, we're getting 6 gigabytes of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 720 5G processor. I ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on the phone, and we're getting a single core score of 504 and a multi-core score of 1670. So this is definitely really good, but I will say, by itself, a Geekbench 5 benchmark test score really isn't going to mean a whole lot. You really need something to compare it to, and the only reason I really know this is good is because I've run this test on so many other phones. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and comparing the numbers to these to see whether or not this phone will be an upgrade for you. Because depending on what you have, it may or may not be. But I will say, I've had this phone for quite some time now, and I've never had any performance issues with it. It's handled pretty much everything I do on it really well. So if you're going to be on your phone a lot, whether you're doing more basic activities like using the camera, streaming videos, browsing the web, that sort of thing, or if you're going to be on social media a lot, or maybe even playing games or something like that, this phone is going to be able to handle it all really well. Now, if you're doing something really graphics intensive, then of course it's probably going to struggle there, since after all, this is not a flagship phone, but at the same time, for most activities, this phone should be just fine. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that as the name suggests, this phone is a 5G phone, so if you want 5G connectivity, that's definitely something to keep in mind, and in this day and age, I do think getting a 5G phone sooner rather than later is for sure a good idea. Now, that's not to say that 4G is going to go away anytime soon, because it's not by a long shot, but at the same time, the 5G network just keeps getting better and better, so I'm really seeing less and less of a reason not to get a 5G phone at this point. Now, this phone has a really good battery as well, with a 5000 mAh battery supporting 15 watt fast charging, so you can expect to get really good battery life here, not only throughout the day, but probably for multiple days, depending on how you use your phone. And then down the road, as the battery degrades, it's not going to affect you nearly as quickly as it would with a smaller battery, because you're already starting with so much more battery life than you need to get through the day. And in addition to this, although 15 watt fast charging by far is not nearly the fastest fast charging out there, this phone still does charge up really fast. So if you have a fast charger, or maybe a really powerful car charger or something like that, this phone is going to charge up real fast and save you a lot of time. Another thing I really like about this phone is that it has NFC, which, in case you don't know, is the technology that allows you to use contactless mobile payment services like Google Pay. So if you do like to use those features, then you'll be happy to know that you can with this phone. But now that we've gone over some of the features and specs, let's take a closer look at the device itself. So on the left side here, we got the slot for the SIM card and the micro SD card. On the bottom, we got the 3.5mm headphone jack, the microphone, a USB-C port, and the speaker. On the right side, we got the power key, and once again, this is also the fingerprint scanner, volume down, volume up. On the top, we got the noise canceling microphone. And on the back, we got the camera setup, the flash, and a Samsung logo down here. The phone has a glossy finish that doesn't look bad, but it does pick up quite a few fingerprints. Now overall, as far as the appearance of this phone goes, it doesn't really look like anything special. It doesn't look bad per se, and it doesn't feel cheap either, but I've definitely seen better. It doesn't have a whole lot of weight to it, so if you're expecting something more premium, you're probably going to be disappointed. But overall, in terms of durability and stuff like that, the buttons are really sturdy, which is something I always look for, especially in these lower mid-range phones. So overall, despite not having the most exciting appearance, this design is definitely not bad either. But in conclusion, is the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G worth buying in 2022? Now, I would say without a doubt, this phone is absolutely worth buying in 2022, and I would actually even go to say that this phone is even more worth buying in 2022 than it was in 2021. The reason being, although this phone retailed for around $200-300, you can find it for so much cheaper now. I mean, certain carriers, like Cricket for example, as of this recording at least, is offering this phone on certain deals for even less than $100. So at that type of price, the amount of value you're getting out of this phone is insane. Sure, it doesn't have a 1080p display or a Super AMOLED or a bunch of fancy flagship features, but we're getting a 5G phone with a really powerful processor, a huge battery, NFC so you can use Google Pay, and a great camera that can even shoot 4K video for the price of a really entry-level phone. So in general, if you're looking for a 5G phone with the features and quality of a mid-range phone, but you want to stay within the budget of an entry-level phone, then the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G is a great phone to buy in 2022. Now once again, if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out my full review and beginner's guide for the phone on the channel. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. But as always, I will see you in the next video.